Today, we're going to talk about a dish that is probably forgotten in Cameroon or maybe still being eaten. But as jollof rice was being eaten in West Africa from Senegal, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and all these other countries, and moving slowly eastward, Cameroonians, especially those of the English speaking descent, enjoyed a different kind of rice. It was called Janga rice. Janga simply is the native name for the small shrimps that are left in the fisherman's boat after the prawns and the fish and the gambas and everything else is taken out. The tiny ones that would usually be thrown back into the sea as food for the big fish would still be caught and sold to, back in the days, to the poor people who could not afford to buy shrimps or the big fish or the gambas or the prawns. The poor people would now take them home and dry them and keep them to be used as seasoning for their food because chicken, beef, fish were expensive or not easy to come by. But once you added crayfish to your food, it took it to another level and gave it the flavor that you would enjoy with your kids and your family. So there is this typical rice that is called Janga rice, which is crayfish rice, which is a simple kind of rice that today people who know about it still crave for this rice, even though jollof rice is very popular. Janga rice is still that dish that is nostalgic. When you make janga rice, people just laugh and they think about the good old days and they're excited and they want to try it. So I'll show you how janga rice is being done, which is crayfish rice. It is simple. All you need for crayfish rice is palm oil, tomatoes, onions, garlic, and crayfish. That's it. You may add some seasoned salt, or those who eat Maggi, you can add Maggi to your janga rice. But basically, it's palm oil, tomatoes, onions, garlic, and crayfish. Now, let's start and see how we make janga rice. It is still a delicacy for those who know about this dish. Usually the women would not blend the crayfish. They will simply mash it. But if you're going to mash the crayfish, you have to be very careful because you might hurt yourself. The whole idea is that they did not have blenders back then. They probably grind them on the stone or simply mash them to break the crayfish before they do the janga rice. I would probably use my little blender here and do a light blend. So you see, after blending, you can still see the crayfish. It is not completely ground. The whole idea is that you want that at the end, you can still see the crayfish in the rice. So not all of it is completely ground. I just put some palm oil in the pot and I'm letting the palm oil to heat up, not necessarily bleaching, but just heat it up enough to put the crayfish first to get the flavor up, and then I'll put the onions and the ginger. I'm going to put my crayfish first to lift up the flavor of the crayfish, and then add my onions. So we're going to let the tomato cook, tomato, onions, garlic, and crayfish cook for about 20 minutes, and then we will add the rice, and that's it. Crayfish rice, simple. Tomatoes, onions, and the key is crayfish and palm oil. It has to be palm oil. All right, so our tomato has been cooking. We'll now add some water, enough to cook the rice. And some people want their crayfish rice spicy, so they either blend the pepper and put it in, or you can just drop a whole in there just for flavor. So you can just drop it there whole and probably use a spoon to just break it a little bit so the heat sucks into the rice, but it is not spicy. Just for the heat to suck into the rice. That's it. Taste to make sure that the salt level is what you want. Add your rice. Let it boil. soon as it boils, then you can turn down the heat. Now, just leave it in high so the water boils. Once it starts boiling, turn the heat and let the steam cook the rice. Put it up in high heat. Again, rice takes about 20-25 minutes to cook, so we'll just wait for the water to boil. Then we turn down the heat to lowest and then wait for the steam to cook the rice. So I'll see you in a few minutes. Now that the rice is boiling, we'll turn down the heat to lowest because, like we said, it is the steam that cooks the rice, not the heat. So turn down the heat to lowest and then wait for it to cook. And once it cooks, we'll plate it and look at it and see exactly what it looks like. It might look not too bright or whatever, but believe me, the flavor that this thing gives, people who know about crayfish rice, when they watch this video, they'll be salivating and just thinking about going to make it, because jollof rice is trending. It is what people want to eat, but when crayfish rice hits your plate and gets into your mouth, you think twice. It is cheap, it is simple to make, and it is very, very flavorful. The fish just gives it another level, and it is not that complicated to make. So now the heat is at the lowest level. We'll wait for the rice to cook, and that's it, and we'll plate and see what it looks like. All right, give it another 20 minutes and we'll plate it and see what crayfish rice looks like, and try it at home and taste it for yourselves. Especially if you cannot find crayfish in your local store, use anchovies. They will be the same. Just make sure you break them down a little bit, soak them for them to get a little bit soft, and then you replace the crayfish with the anchovies. It's still going to give you a nice flavor for your rice. So if you don't have crayfish and you want to try the dish, use anchovies in place of crayfish. I'll see you in a minute when, oh, not in a minute, in the next 20 minutes, it'll be done and I'll plate it and we'll look at it and taste it. Our crayfish rice is done. Let's plate it and see how it looks. Those who know crayfish rice, the look might not matter because all they're going to think about is the taste. Okay. This is our crayfish rice. And if you look carefully, you see pieces of the crayfish in the rice. That's how it should be. Today, people put a lot of crayfish because they can afford it. But believe me, back in the days, 50s, 60s, 70s, people couldn't afford. So they would do just a little bit of crayfish to give that flavor, together with the garlic, the onions, and the tomatoes, and some pepper. Again, the pepper will not be ground. The pepper will just be poked and cooked with the rice to give it the flavor, because pepper, from where I come from in our own region of the northwest of Cameroon, has a very, very beautiful or nice aroma. So it was about the aroma, not the heat. So the pepper will just be broken a little bit or poked a little bit and cooked with the food, just so that it gets the flavor when the final dish comes out. So that is crayfish rice, in traditional lingo, Janga rice. Cook it and enjoy. Simple and cheap, but very, very tasty. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.